If we can see the flag, which flag?
I was just gonna say.
It's not the whiteboard.
I'll draw a picture of them.
I haven't forgotten others.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Public meeting minutes of October 10th, 2024, which was a work session, I believe. Somebody want to make a motion to approve those?
Second.
Motion by Les, second by Dawn to approve the meetings of the October 10th, 2024 meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda for 11/7/24, consisting of accounts payable manifest dated 10/22/24, accounts payable manifest dated 10/29/24, accounts payable manifest dated 11/6/24, payroll manifest dated 10/24/24, payroll manifest dated 11/7/24, distribution of funds from highway vehicle capital reserve in the amount of $242,885. Administrative abatements, map lot 114-091 in the amount of $87.16 for water and sewer billings. Approval of 2024 MS 535 financial report for period ending December 31, 2023. Approval and acceptance of highway safety grant in the amount of $13,762.88. Distribution of funds to the town's general fund from the water department operating fund in the amount of $110,510.74. Distribution of funds from the town general funds to the town general fund from the sewer department operating fund in the amount of $103,901.49.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dawn, second by Les to approve the consent agenda dated 11/7/24. Any discussion?
I just want to point out that the last two weren't in your packets last night, but we were trying to get all the money that we can back into the funds so that we have cash on hand.
Okay.
So that is just for payroll and health insurance from water service.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
This one can.
She didn't like it. I gave you the wooden gavel a couple weeks ago.
I was
wondering
what was going on with the
This one
gavel.
can only be signed by you on the consent agenda. Can you just sign here? If you're okay, I can do all the initials. Okay.
Two signatures?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, while you do that, I'd make a motion to seal the minutes of the non-public meeting indefinitely, as information could affect adversely the reputation of a person other than a member of this board or render a proposed action ineffective.
Second.
Motion by Carol, second by Scott to seal the minutes of tonight's non-public session. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. 1 second here. Well, this is gonna take, you don't need this right now.
You just do the two signatures. I can do the rest of your other.
There you go.
Oops, this one. Sorry.
Oh.
Okay.
You good?
Yep. We're signing two of those, and I can explain why when you're ready.
Okay. Officer Greer, haven't even been here a year and you're already getting called in front of the selection.
I want to ruin my record.
For the record, this is for a commendation.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so.
That's good.
We thank you for coming in and thank your family for coming in, and of course Mabel, which we're far more excited to have her here. Get used to that, Nick can tell you all about it. So. All right. Let me we'll read this off before we actually sign it too. Yep. To Officer Michael Greer, the Select Board and Town Administrator would like to formally commend you and your K-9 partner Mabel for your outstanding performance in the successful tracking of a runaway juvenile on October 19, 2024. The first successful tracking of a missing person is a remarkable achievement, and it speaks volumes about the bond that you and your K-9 shared, as well as the training that has gone into preparing both of you for situations like this. To track a missing person alone is a challenge, but to track the juvenile for 7 hours, for 7 hours later, was outstanding. Your ability to interpret the cues provided by Mabel and work together at such a young age is a testament to your dedication and skill. The work you do is not only vital to the safety of our community, but also sets a standard for the level of excellence we strive to maintain in law enforcement. Mabel has already proven to be an invaluable asset to the team, and your leadership and guidance as a handler are clearly integral to that success. Please accept this letter as a formal recognition of your achievement. Your commitment to your work, your partner, and the community are deeply appreciated, and we look forward to seeing the continued success of you and Mabel in future operations. Once again, congratulations on this milestone, and thank you for your outstanding service. Thank you. On a little more personal note, I think I speak for the board in saying this. We're all very impressed with what you've done so far. Both you and Mabel.
Mabel gets a squirrel.
In the work that
Did you, I'm interrupting you.
the work that you have put into this program, just in the past, the future, the short months that we've had Mabel, I think is pretty impressive, and including the feedback we've got from Chief Bean. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, just the same thing, that just so everybody knows, the feedback from Working Dog Foundation that we do our training through is that one of probably the best dogs that they've had come through, and that she's going to be phenomenal. Officer Greer went to a specialty training which Working Dog paid for him to travel down there, and there was bloodhounds from all over the country, and it was the same feedback from there of she was young. What was she, the youngest dog?
She was the youngest dog, yeah.
And one of the best, so we are very fortunate to have her in Officer Greer,
Yeah.
so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming in again.
Absolutely,
So,
thanks for inviting us.
we
So that
we'll pass these around.
Yeah, pass those around. Sign, if you could sign both, then one will go into your file, one's for you. She likes cheese sticks, by the way, we had to find out. We didn't know what to give, so I didn't want to just bring her treats, so.
Is this live? Oh.
Yes.
So just a reminder to anyone in the community, I do scent preservation kits for any loved ones you may think may get lost at some point in time or need to find them. Please feel free to reach out to me and we can get that preservation kit done. If it's a privacy thing, you can leave the scent preservation kit at your house as long as it's in a freezer. And it'll help me out dramatically with initializing the track of the missing person.
Yep. And that's something that I think you guys already did a Facebook post on.
Yeah, and Old Home Day.
And we'll be happy to put it on the town
Yeah.
page as well again too. So get
Maybe
it
that's
attention.
Yeah, if you give me
Yeah.
something, like, we can get it in the buzz and we can put it right on the news page too.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Before we leave, do you want to get a picture for the bosses?
You guys are all over there. Carol.
Gonna take it all out.
Is my fault, I gave her the toy.
You guys want to come up?
Oh,
Did you all?
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Did you sign both?
That's good.
Some of us have signed.
Yes.
You're still in hands.
Oh, yeah.
Mike, you want me to
Oh,
get
have
a
we?
treat? Want me to get some cheese?
Oh, goodness.
Mike, you want some cheese?
Do you have
See what you get.
That's how I usually get her to do stuff as I give her treats.
She's like, I got a squirrel.
Yeah, she's happy with that.
Here we go.
Look at him, I'll just take him.
Christine, you picked this toy out? That'll be a long night in the Thursday. Especially for you. That's all right.
You won't fall asleep, I know.
I won't throw anybody under the
I love it.
Right? Keep him up all night. Yeah, exactly. The squeaker's coming out of that.
Mine won't leave it in.
Yeah, I know, she usually doesn't, she usually destroys them, so. Yeah, no kidding.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on, Mike, don't leave yet.
Oh, no, we gotta need that.
Supposed to do it online, actually, you're supposed to print it in there, which
How did I miss that?
I don't know.
There you go, kiddo.
Hold that, you can say, hold that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one, guys.
All right,
Thank you. Good night. Get you. There you go.
All right. Homer is not here, I take it.
Nope.
We were supposed to have a Grafton County update from Homer here, but
You wouldn't know if he was here for the national anthem.
we sure would have, yeah. Let's talk about bid award.
There is a document in your folders under number 6. We also have Steve Smith from Underwood Engineering and Jeff here tonight to talk about it. Yeah, sorry, Steve's online.
Oh, I was like, what's the name? Jeff here to talk about it. Jeff, would you like to open it up, or?
Yeah, sure. We finally went out to bid, received 3 bids for the Central Street pump station replacement after many years of planning. So Steve Smith can get into the details of those bids and recommendations for awarding the contract.
Christina, can you hear me?
We can.
My won't allow me to share my video, so I don't know whether you could.
Yep. There you go. You should be able to now.
Am I able to share my screen?
I can't see it, but I did give you permission.
Okay, it's telling me it can't start the video, but maybe if I just email you a document, then you can maybe bring it up and share it with everybody in the room. So I'm just going to email this to you, and then we can talk through this. But
Is it part of the package, the recommendation package?
I don't think that project budget was one that that was included in that package. The budget that I shared with you and Jeff was something I just put together for us to talk around. But I'm going to send this to you now via email, so if you can pick it up and bring it up on the screen, then we can.
Okay.
We can discuss it, and I can talk through it. But so, as Jeff said, when we went out to bid, we probably canvassed something on the order of 15 general contractors. Of those 15 that we canvassed, to let them know it was out for public bidding, we received something on the order of 12 requests for bid documents, and ultimately 3 contractors ended up bidding submitting bids. And so Sargent Construction are the lowest bidder at 2.94 million. Then Northeast Earth Mechanics submitted a bid for 3.95 million. And then D-Felice were a little bit ways out there, they were at 5.95 million. So So the bid that we received from Sargent kind of works very well with the budget that the town has with the funding. Again, the Sargent bid number was higher than what we or what our budget had previously allowed, but obviously that budget was set some time ago, and as you know, things have increased. We've generally seen a general 30% increase across the board since COVID. So, but their number is a good number. So how the project budget actually looks, it's 25,000 is the first item, and that's an administration fee that's required by one of the other funding agencies. It's the Community Development Block Grant. They're providing a total of $500,000 of grant money towards construction of the pump station and force main. Then we have engineering, design and construction, it's a 626K, and then we have the construction cost for Sargent Corp construction, that's 2.94 million. So the budget as it stands is 3.59 million, and then how that kind of sugars off with the various funding agencies and what they're contributing towards construction and engineering. So the US Department of Agriculture Rural Development, or RD, are funding $2 million in a loan. Then we were able to secure the congressional direct spending, which was from Senator Shaheen's office. That was 1.05 million. It's being administered by the Environmental Protection Agency, and again, that's pure grant money. And then the CDBG, which is the Community Development Block Grants, 500,000. Again, that's pure grant money. And then just to make up the numbers, there is a small contribution by the town of 40K to get where we need to be. So the RD will fund both the engineering cost and the construction cost. The CDS, Congressional Direct Spending money, and the CDBG money will only go towards the construction costs, so that's paying for Sargent Corp's bill. So as you see in the bottom summary, I've listed out the funding agencies, and then the administration fee for CDBG, engineering. So as it will work out, RD will fund 585,100, with the remaining amount to be funded by the town, and then the full 2.94 million is being funded, but in round numbers 1.4 by RD, 1.05 for CDS, and 475,000 for CDBG. So the packet that you have in front of you is a letter that Underwood has put together as what we refer to as an award recommendation. So once we receive the bids, we then take a look at the low bidder. We do our due diligence checks. We check a number of their references. We check their banking details and their bonding details, and those are all very favourable. In fact, Sargent are able to bond up to a single project of 450 million, so they have no problems bonding for our small project of 3 million. So that all checked out very well, and so we're recommending that the town award the construction contract to Sargent Corp. There is one other step that we do in addition to the award recommendation letter that we submitted to the town. We have to request to RD authorization to allow the town to actually award the contract. So Again, Christine has a copy of that letter, but it was sent to RD and they require a number of documents and information to satisfy those requirements. So once they give their blessing to allow the town to award it, and the select board here give their blessing as well, then we'll be in a position to request bonds and insurances from Sargent, and then set up the contract signing and the pre-construction meeting to get them going. And in terms of schedule, I'm hoping that the authorization from RD for the town to be able to make the award is going to happen within the next week or two, and that's the kind of timescale for that. Then just bigger picture with the schedule for the project. Once we award the contract to Sargent, work on site is likely to start in the spring. And so that kind of schedule works well. It gives them the winter, November, December, January, February, March, to get all their technical submittals that we require in, so that we can review that, and then they can place the purchase orders for the various pieces of equipment and make a start on construction. So that's kind of a summary of where we are at the moment, and so I've just opened it should the town have any questions for me.
Anyone? Jeff, you have anything else?
No. Good, I'm excited for this project.
Yeah. Steve, you said Northeast Earth Industries, and what was the other company that bid?
Yeah, the other two were, I got that referred to as NEEM, but it's Northeast Earth Mechanics. And then the other contractor was a company called DeFelice Corporation. They're out of Massachusetts.
Okay, yeah, just curious, that's all.
Yeah, yeah. And again, in the packet that I did send to Christina, it does include the bid tab, so it shows you the results of the three bids and how their numbers stack up.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that that obviously this came in more than we expected, but it also took us a long time to keep this project moving forward. We have the funding, we've got the interim funding with Franklin Savings Bank for $2 million, and we've got the funding from USDA when the project's complete for the bond, so.
I have a question, just as a reminder for the public, what is this gonna cost the town? Because I think you said, excuse me, Steve, I think you said RD was a loan?
It's
The
a
$2
bond.
million?
Yes.
Bond, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bond. We don't have the payment schedule on that bond yet. We budgeted for interest on the Franklin Savings Bank, the interim financing. We did put that interest payment in because that's what we will be using. We don't anticipate we're gonna have a bond payment until 2026. It is a 50-50 split with the town and sewer, thank you. So, but I don't have the payment schedule yet from RD, so.
$2,040,500 is our, is what we're, is
Yeah,
costing us,
yep,
is what we are paying as a town.
we're paying,
The RD number and the bottom
2 million.
number, right?
we're paying
Yes.
$2,040,500.
500, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Carol, plus interest on the $2 million.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think, as Christina said, just one thing for the town to be aware, the way RD operate, they don't give you the money up front. They make you take out an interim finance, and so you fund it, and once you've met the value of the loan, then they come in and they pay off the loan. That's how that works.
Yes,
Yeah.
right, that's why we have the Franklin Savings Bank.
Right. So when we budgeted for the interest payment, we planned on, we didn't anticipate we were going to have to start taking the Franklin Savings Bank money until spring spring to summer timeframe. So depends on what they are able to start, so.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? Steve, thank you for coming on with us tonight and
Okay, you're welcome.
giving us that information. And just on another note, thank you particularly to Jeff and to Christina for the work that they've put into this recently. And Jeff, recently Christina, but for years now, Jeff has put into this, bringing this project to fruition.
And keeping the existing facility up and running.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, so.
I think Jeff thinks I stalled it on purpose, so that he would have to stay longer.
Yeah, we're gonna put this all out off another year, Jeff, just to keep you around. So, but yeah, well, thank you for joining us, Steve, much appreciated,
You're
and
welcome.
look forward to working with you in the spring.
Yeah, okay, that's great. Thank you.
Excellent.
Thanks, Steve.
Bye. Bye.
Jeff, did you have anything you wanna add to that, or?
No, I think it's gonna be a great project. They've worked well with us over the years, designing the thing, taking our feedback back to the drawing board, did a lot of changes, but I think all in all, it's gonna be a great station. And it's also replacing the force main from the pump station all the way up to Baker Street, which doesn't, at times, we've had 2 breaks in one day on that street, so.
Oh, wow.
It's an old cast iron main that will be replaced with HDP pipe, directional drilling. So we won't be digging up the road, we won't be digging up spots and drilling
Yep.
underneath all the existing infrastructure, so I think it's gonna be a good project. And
Excellent. Well, again, we greatly appreciate the time and effort you've put into it, so, that and everything else, so.
Well,
Yeah, excellent. All right, public hearing, number 1 for 85 Lake Street, which is the old fire station. So the board voted about 6 months ago to proceed with the sale of the fire station, the old fire station at 85 Lake Street. Kind of with the method of sale to be determined, which, in preliminary discussion, I think we've decided for it to go to auction preliminarily. We've discussed going to a live auction as the best way to get the most money out of the property, as long as we do proceed in that direction. So that said, I would open up the public hearing to members of the public that want to ask questions or comment on that, so.
We're just required to hold the 2 public hearings, like you said, to determine what you're going to do.
Yes, I did forget to add that part. We are, prior to the sale of the property, we are required to hold 2 public hearings. So there'll be a public hearing today, another public hearing 2 weeks from now, and then a vote. I think we have to take a formal vote on it at the following meeting.
Yeah, so
Yes.
November 21st is your second public hearing, and December 5th would be the final vote.
Yep.
So.
Walter, come on up.
I know I'm not going to change anybody's mind.
You can have a seat, Walter. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to stand. And we get you on the microphone too.
I know it didn't take a lot of imagination to see the number of senior citizens in this town that showed up for election. There were a lot of us. And those people have cared about this town, paid the cost of living here for a lot of years. And I know finances can only go so far, you can only do so much with what you've got. But I think this town owes a little bit more consideration to the number of people that need further services. I'm very fortunate. I'm a United Auto worker. I don't have a shortage of benefits. But there's a lot of people that don't have the advantages I do. And I don't think enough consideration is being given to them. We had a wonderful facility with Nana. And that died because the people in this town didn't take enough care of it. I wish I had realized how important that was going to be to my future, because I'd have hollered hard a long time ago. But that fire station, we bought it, us seniors. We paid for it, that's us seniors. We maintained it. And I think we should get a little bit more consideration in what's being done with it. I know voting would have been, in my opinion, much easier for a lot of us if that's where we had voted. The place was empty. Why did we have to get people that can barely walk out of one vehicle, across the parking lot into another vehicle, and then out of that vehicle up at the historic town hall? When that was available, we could have pulled in and parked very close. I don't think it showed much consideration for us. I've been paying taxes personally in this town since '85. My family has been paying taxes in this town since '48. A lot of us worked pretty hard for that money. And I don't see why that has to be sold to cover up for the increases in the cost of running this town. A lot of beds have been feathered, but not for the seniors. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk. I know I'm not going to change your mind. I just hope it puts your feet a little closer to the fire.
Thank you, Walter. Anyone else from the public have any comments? Questions? Anyone from the board?
Yeah.
Carol?
I would remind everyone that we did have a poll at town meeting regarding this. And the numbers were in favor of selling it to a high percentage, just as a reminder for all of us and to those who are watching. Christina, correct?
There were 50, so there was,
It was a small response size, a
Yes.
small sample size.
we only had 86 people that filled them out at town meeting.
Yeah.
55 of them would prefer to see the building, so 30 would prefer to keep the building, and one didn't feel they had enough information to give their opinion.
Walter?
That survey came as a real surprise to me. I don't think there was any intent to show fairness to the people by letting them know it was going to be there before it appeared. That survey wasn't fair.
Okay, well, that certainly wasn't intentional on any of our parts, Walter. That was, if we were remiss there, that was accidental and not on purpose.
So, yeah, anybody, Les, do you, or Scott, Carol, you done?
I have another different
Yes,
point, but
Go ahead.
we did have a discussion with the folks from the senior center in Plymouth.
Grafton County Senior Citizen Council.
Right, and they said they could consider using the building, and that, correct me if I'm remembering this incorrectly, anyone, they would put the funds towards any repair work that needed to be done, but we didn't have that information to give them. We couldn't say it's gonna cost you $200,000 to fix X, Y, and Z. We didn't have that information to give them. So they seemed like they were positive. It could have been a positive, but it was unclear what it would cost them to do it. Am I remembering? I think you guys weren't in on that conversation.
I was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that for the sake of clarity and transparency here, that's all.
Don, did you have anything?
No.
So, a few
I
things.
did forget to add something earlier, Rob. We were supposed to also present this to Conservation Commission and Planning Board, which we did. I have the motions from those boards. There was a motion at the Planning Board to support the Select Board if it decides to sell the property at 85 Lake Street. That was from the Planning Board, and then the Conservation Commission only was concerned of the proximity to wetlands, any building on wetlands, whatever the work is that is done specific to the protection of the river and protection of site work and runoff.
So a couple things I'd like to address that Walter brought up. This board cares very much about the population of seniors in this community. And one of the things that I'm most concerned about is one of the points you brought up, Walter, is particularly about voting. And you probably don't know this, and probably most others in the public don't know this, but we're already taking steps towards addressing that problem. Superintendent Paul Harris was in, was it last meeting or the meeting before? We've had discussions with Superintendent Harris about aligning their teachers' workshop days with election days in Bristol. That would allow us to vote at one of the schools. Which one? I don't know. We're kind of not in the, I wouldn't say the infant stages, but he was very receptive to it. It's something that he's dealt with in districts that he's worked in the past. Those are buildings that we, as taxpayers, both all of us, seniors and 18-year-old new residents and new homeowners alike are paying for already, are the buildings in the school district. And this would open us up to be able to use those buildings for town voting. My personal opinion, and this is not me speaking for the board or the school district or anyone, I'd like to see it happen at either BES or the middle school, simply because I want people to still be able to walk to the building in town, even though the high school might be more convenient for, parking, that sort of thing. So I just want you and all the other taxpayers to know that that is a serious problem that we wholeheartedly agree with, and it was even more evident the other day when we had 2,200 voters. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do it in time. So, I personally, I had the thought, maybe we should have this one election at the fire station. That would, first of all, the fire station right now is in no condition to have an election in. Second of all, I believe legally we were already committed to having it at that location, as we thought that building would potentially be gone at this point in time. So we did not really realize that we had to go through other steps with the state. So the next thing I'd like to address, I'm just going to ask Les real quick. One of the things I've heard around town in discussions about the TTCC and in plans in the future of the TTCC here, opening up more to senior programs. Is that, am I correct in?
So
I don't mean to put you on the spot, I apologize.
That's
Too
okay.
late.
She's got the gavel.
Twofold.
Good for them.
For one of the pieces is the building that we're currently in will now be much more accessible to seniors with a lift to the bottom floor.
Yeah.
And it's open during the day. I foresee us being able to offer a lot more opportunities for seniors to use this building now that it will be all handicap accessible. The other piece is we are looking into a potential property that we would build. We need a full-size gymnasium, we need more program space, but part of that project, we are hopeful to include an area that could be a commercial kitchen, dining room, and offer more senior activities in conjunction with the Newfound Senior Center. Potentially, maybe even combining into a building, but those conversations haven't been had with the senior center yet, so that's on our 3 to 5 year plan for the community center, is to have that additional space.
I just want to add to your comment, because also I want people to understand in March, we can't move them yet to the school by March.
No, yes.
Okay, sorry, I
Yes,
just wanted to make sure
this
you
would
knew
be,
that.
this would be would not take effect until the following school year, right? What I was talking about moving voting to the schools. So the last thing I'd like to address, I know that building as well, if not better than anyone in this room, or probably even in town at this point. That building needs a lot of work. There is a lot of money that will have to be put into that building for whatever it's going to become, whether it becomes a business or a senior center or a gym or whatever, a restaurant, whatever it may be. This town cannot afford that building. If we were to keep that building and pay for the upkeep in just the electricity and the heat of that building, and then the cost of repair to that building, sure, we could afford that building, but we have to cut services. And those services, cutting those services would be far more detrimental to seniors in this community than trying to pay to turn that building into something else. So, my 2 cents, not the board's. Mr. Fellows?
I just got one thing. What was with the parking here? They weren't allowed to park along either side of the road, which made it 10 times worse.
So
You couldn't get in the parking lot.
we're going
here
into
unless
a
there was
different-
hole in it.
we're going in, we're kind of tying in, but can we save that for public comment, please?
Yeah, but
Yeah, no, I certainly want to address it. I just want to finish up the public hearing here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else on the 85 Lake Street property? Walter?
I want to thank Scott for starting the discussion on this, because without what Scott did, not many of us would have known or suspected what was going to happen.
I think you're referring to his,
Done.
you're referring to his post on social media.
Yep.
Yeah. And it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And to address that as well, it wasn't this board's intent whatsoever to try and pull the wool over the public's eyes and take action on that building without letting people know what's going on. So that's what we're having a public hearing for here today. That's why we had, I know you don't, I understand you don't agree with the way the surveys were put out. I apologize for that. If that's something we can improve upon in the future, we certainly will. So.
We didn't do the survey questions until
Yeah.
like the last minute, so
Yeah.
we can make sure next time.
And the only other thing I'll say is, there was in Scott, Scott voted against the sale of the building. And I'm not trying to call you out. But Scott had some ideas for the building, which I respect.
Not trying, we're doing.
So you did have representation for both, not that there's two sides of this, but there was an alternate opinion on the board. This wasn't, a straight across the board, let's say literally straight across the board opinion. And, I think that came up back probably about a year ago, maybe a little less. But in that year, no one has come to the board and said, whether it be someone for the public or another agency, like for instance, one of the other senior agencies saying, hey, here's a plan. We'd like to try and do this. What do you think? Here's what it might cost. We don't have that. We don't know. It's a complete unknown. So it'd be completely irresponsible of us as a board, in my opinion, to roll the dice and take that chance. So, Christina?
You have been approached by some people who want to use it commercially and what their plans are. We haven't been
Yes.
approached by others.
We were, to be fair, we were approached by someone that wanted to lease the building. But we essentially said that the town didn't want to get into the business of being a landlord, so. And that wasn't something that would be a non-profit, community-oriented type of thing, so.
I know when I talked to Baker Valley at the budget committee meeting, they agreed if they had a space like that available, they would provide more service for us. And I know if you have competition, you make things better. And right now, the competition is pretty limited.
You're talking about between those agencies?
Services for seniors.
Yeah.
I think Paul does a wonderful job. Paul could write after me on lots of things. But I still think more should have been put out in ways that the people would hear it. And all I can say is the number of people who would have voted in this last election and didn't because of the difficulty indicates how many of us there are. And you're all heading to that age yourselves. Every one of you is heading at that age. There was a time when I didn't think getting old was possible. But I'm telling you, every one of you is heading at that age now. Consider our need, because it's going to be your need for long.
Thank you, Walter. Anyone else on the public hearing before we close it? All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to planning board. John?
Do you want to finish the public comment thing?
No, that's
Okay.
completely, that's down the,
Separate.
Okay.
staying in line with the agenda, sorry, Bob.
It's all good, it's all good. Okay.
Jeff.
Have a good night, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, I'd take a break too, Jeff. All right. In your packets there, one of the things I asked the folks to share with you guys is an article about short-term rentals. Carol, last time I was in, when I talked about the land use section of the master plan, and I said, you know, the contractor was saying, you know, roughly 275 houses need to be added, right? I took note of your disagreement with that. And by the way, like, so, right, it's all good. Two things came out of that.
This yesterday, but go ahead.
Well, but so there's two things that came out of that, okay, that I think are important, and why I asked to have that particular article, because Joanne and the team, you know, dug that up for us. The role of the planning board in this case is, you know, we can work on the zoning pieces of what it means for short-term rentals, and you know, I think when we think about our industries in town, right? So this sort of goes back to my question to you guys around, what do we really want to be when we grow up? Are we only a retirement and vacation community? Right? And this goes to that same point. When you consider the 275, right now, if we ask land use, how many single-family homes do we have in town? How many multifamily homes? We have a number. Okay, but the number's not accurate. And what I mean by not accurate is, if somebody has a home around the lake and it's a short-term rental, and we consider it a single-family home, we actually can't count that. So what are we adding the 275 to? Even if we say, you know, we disagree with 275, maybe it's over the next 10 years, it's only 100 houses. Not only do we need to figure out where they go and how they fit in, but what's the base number? Like, we really don't have an accurate inventory, okay? And where I think we gotta figure out how to work together now is, when you look at short-term rentals and we think about the whole vacation and side of our community, that's one of our industries. When you think about the industries that are here in Bristol today, that is an industry for us. So I know this one's not going to be popular, because, you know, basically we have to figure out a way of how we want to inventory the town, how often we should do it, whatnot. But that's going to require you guys, the board, the select board, to consider that, and also consider the fees. And when you take a look at that article, you'll see what other towns are charging for those fees. I think it's incredibly important, because again, if they tell us we got to add, let's just for argument's sake say the 275 is the right number, okay?
And just for the sake of discussion, can you back up for the people on camera and tell them
Sure.
what it is where that information is coming from?
Oh, I'm sorry, okay. Yeah, so the planning board's obviously working on the master plan, working on the update. Two sections that we have to do, vision and land use. Land use, we've engaged with a contractor and with Lakes Region Planning Commission. They do a regular survey. And the numbers right now, based on population growth of the area, what we need for housing, the number that they're telling us that we need to add is 275. So over the next 10 years, we probably need 275 units, 70-ish of our rental capacity, and 200 units of other just sort of places for people to live, okay? So that's the background. That good?
Yep.
All right, we're all good.
Thank you.
There's so many things that are interrelated here, right? Like sort of like how you guys are looking at our business community, right? Like the right now, when I think about short-term rentals, they're in that realm. But we really don't do anything with it today. We don't understand how many we have. We don't understand sort of what the impacts are to our housing for our community, right? You know, you got folks that buy up, so there's a property across on West Shore Road, across from the lake. And you'd sort of like, you look around the lake, you sort of assume it's either a rental or a vacation spot, okay? But there are still homes, like on Upper Birch and stuff like that, that are regular homes. There's no way in our current inventory today for me to tell you how many we have in one category versus another category and what our capacity is for a town. So one of the things that I was thinking about when you were sort of challenging me on the 275 before, Carol, was, okay, you got a family that lives in town today, they got 2 kids, the kids go through the school system. Kids want to stay here in Bristol. Okay, how do we, like, what does that mean? Are we, to me, when I think about the 275, I'm thinking about the folks that are looking to stay here, right? And how do we make sure we're working on housing and the business environments here that support them in order to do that? Okay, so in that same vein, some of the data I've asked the land use department just to sort of be able to help us baseline the conversation. They're still working on pulling it together, but it's things like, what's the average cost of a home today in Bristol? We're trying to separate it by lake versus rural, right? Well, but so like, what's the average cost of a home? And then what are the jobs that are available in Bristol and around here? What do they make? Like mathematically, we can back into every one of these things and figure out where we're going. But like, if I take a step back from a planning board perspective, our charge and our role is to work on the master plan. It is to work on the zoning that we need to support it, right? Like, but there's all of these other touch points. You know, Scott and I were talking about, of course I was telling Scott that I wanted to bring in a Pepsi plant instead of a Coca-Cola plant, right? But Scott was like, no, you know, there may be an opportunity where Coca-Cola would want to come up here. Okay. But right now, our zoning is such that we probably don't have it in a spot where they'd want to put it. I'm not saying that that's what we need to do, but like, if from an economic development perspective, you guys are charging the economic development folks with trying to work on that kind of thing, we also need time to look at that zoning, which then goes back to the land use pieces, right? This is what I'm saying, all of these pieces are interconnected, and it requires us to be on the same page. So, what I'm here for tonight is twofold. One, to sort of lay that groundwork for you guys, because I really think we need to get some feedback from you. So hopefully, Scott, at one of our next planning board meetings, you can bring to the planning board sort of how you guys are thinking about the business environment and what we need to try to work on, because I do think that whole commercial thing, like, if that's a reality and we have other spots in town that we need to really address, like we've talked about for River Road and what should happen on that side of Bristol, you know, it's 18 months for us to kind of work through all of the pieces to do that. But when you look at our business environment today, I think we're challenged. And if you consider the housing, which then goes to the whole land use piece, and you consider what does it mean for somebody to come here in town, like, what are we intending to do for folks? Anyways, that's kind of my pieces around those bits.
And part of that discussion also we had around short-term rentals was, you know, trying to get a handle. Do we have an issue in town? Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but we don't know where to start. We need a starting point. So we're looking at possible survey.
Yep.
How do we go about doing that? Because, you know, and part of it is the, you know, if we treat it as an industry or how it affects our services that we offer. and our resources, the lake, right? Because there are short-term rentals that are single-family homes that are now housing 10 and 12 people, maybe not,
Yeah.
over a weekend time or a week. And those are, so they're,
Let me add to that, right? So like the short-term rental thing, here's some of the pieces that I was told, and it was anecdotal, and I do not have, no one showed me directly somebody doing this, okay? But anecdotally, they said, hey, we've had some rentals that have environmental toilets, right? Like toilets, composting toilets, right? So bags it up, and then they take the bag and it goes to the solid waste facility. Like, is that, it all becomes a capacity thing. How are we monitoring and managing that as an industry? Because in truth, I think what we're gonna find, because of the draw of the lake and the vacations, because, we have scenarios where folks are buying those properties, that, and their rental income from the Memorial Day to Labor Day outweighs what somebody can charge on a monthly basis around here for a year, right? So
And that's-
it just becomes a thing around how do we want to try to do this as a town? The other piece that, I don't know if you have this, the other piece that the land use office put together was a chart showing what the other communities are doing, so like Meredith and Sunapee, and what you'll see some of the examples in that article around what they're doing, but they're out there getting ahead of it. I think this is one of our industries, and we need to figure out what we need to be doing here to understand it, so that we can plan. There's no way for me to give this town a proper land use plan in the master plan without a good inventory. We do not have a good inventory or a good way to come up with what our inventory is today. Anyways.
You just opened up a huge can of worms.
Yep.
And this is gonna have to be a much longer conversation at some point, because this is a concern that, just last week, I kinda thought this was going on, but now I know what's going on. I carpool, so I have a home next to mine, single family home.
Yeah.
Never see them. Maybe, they used to come up twice a year.
Yeah.
Might see them once a year. So I see this carpool in the driveway, it's the owner of the house. Comes up, hey, how's it going? Just want to give you a key, because I found their house open last year.
Yeah.
Want to give you a key. Okay, great. Yeah, we've got this realtor that won't leave us alone from Rhode Island, and they're trying to buy our home, and I'm like, so what's happening is out-of-state real estate agencies are coming in and buying up homes and turning them into short-term rentals and profiting off of them, and that money is going straight out of town.
That is absolutely correct.
So, that said, much longer conversation needs to be had on this. Here's my question to you.
Yes, sir.
Can we come up with a permitting process for short-term rentals? Can we require a permit? Not even saying we have to charge on it. So what if we do this? What if we require a permit on short-term rentals? It's gonna take a little bit of time, but I mean, I see here they're talking about like a $3,000 a year plan to do a survey. That permit and enforcement of that process will tell us how many we have in town. And we could talk about even charging a fee for said permit.
So I personally completely agree with that process, because again, when I think about short-term rentals, it is not I don't believe, this is John talking, not the planning board, I don't believe it's our job to tell people what to do with their property. I am not here to go, oh, you should do this. Like, we have to, when I think of zoning, I think of zoning in terms of, I've got to do things that make it fair and equal for you and your neighbor, and everybody's working under the same rules, right? Like, that's sort of how I look at it. When it comes to short-term rentals, I look at that is a business. I was having a discussion actually at your place, Don, right, with, I think it was Nick. Anyways, but we were having a long chat about, well, because a lot of folks use Airbnb now. So like back in the day, everybody used a realtor, and we had sort of one way to get a certain amount of data. But now there's so many different ways. Again, I'm not here to try to figure out using this platform or that platform, or if you have the right model. But here's the deal. Here's the net impact. Okay, if we have scenarios where folks, because of the nature of our industry, and I'm being very purposeful in using the word industry, because of the nature of our industry for vacations around here, we have an opportunity, one, to be able to gain some revenue in that, because that's a business that's here, okay? And then two, have a better understanding of it, because if we're not careful, we're going to price out anybody that needs to live in this community to support that industry. Right? We're gonna lose the support of that industry.
That's precisely what's happened in
That's
Maryland.
exactly, because somebody that knows that they're gonna get $4,000 or $5,000 a week for a house isn't worried about a $10,000 difference. The person that needs to work in the local restaurant or in one of the local businesses around here to support the folks that come up during the vacation times, during leaf peeping, during snow season, whatever, like, they're the ones that do worry about that $10,000 difference.
And that's exactly, so the next problem you're gonna run into, and it's on a much smaller scale.
We're together here.
But the next problem you're gonna run into is similar to Aspen, Colorado, where the people required, the workers, that the service workers in that town cannot afford to live in that town.
That's correct.
And they have to live 30 miles away to
So-
be able to afford housing on the wages they're making in the big dollar
So
town.
that's precisely why I asked the question I did at the land use office. Like, trying to put together that chart of what's the average cost of a home, what's the average, salary, and for what business type. Which is kind of why, like, my other whole pet project around training and the fiber optics and what we're doing with all of those pieces. Why isn't Hub 66 hiring here in town? What are we doing to transform our workforce? All of that stuff to me is like, that is of paramount importance. It goes into this entire conversation. To your point, Rob, the hard part about this is all of these people, it's so interconnected, right? Like what you're trying to do, and this is why, I mean, God help me, I can't even want to say it this way. This is why the master plan, to me, becomes such a thing, right? It's not, the planning board cannot and should not be sitting over on the side going, okay, RSA, blah, 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 I need to update the master plan. Like, yeah, I can do that. And yeah, I can let the 275 go into the land use section, because historically, nobody really ever looks at it. But this, to me, is the impetus to try to get everybody on the same page. Anyway.
Sorry, allergies.
You're all good. So that's why I came in tonight. I think we want to work on short-term rentals, in that I think we need to look at the zoning, look at some of the pieces that we need to support that. And I think we should do some back and forth between, us coming here, some of you guys showing up at a planning board meeting, where we do some back and forth around, okay, what are the pieces that we need? Because let's just consider and say, let's say there's 250, right, short-term rentals in town, okay? Again, from a revenue perspective, you start to look at that, and you look at what, and not to be out of scope with any of the other communities around here, and they're charging $350 to $500 a piece. Okay, so if they're charging $500 a year at 250, that's $12,500. Right, so like the focus of, and this is where I think this isn't a planning board thing. This is more of a between you guys and Christina. Like, the focus of land use in that kind of business environment, it could really pay off.
As far as, so basically the property would be assessed differently.
I don't know that it'd be assessed differently. I think we treat it as a business. So like, we would treat it as, okay, what's the size of your septic system? How many occupants are you saying you can have at one time? Because right now, you look at some of these properties, and if you go look them up on Airbnb, there's a bunch of bunk beds. And it's not about, it's a 3-bedroom that has the flow of a regular 3-bedroom. Right? I know of several properties that actually had, in the middle of the summer, had complete failures of their septic systems. Right? Like, who deals with that? I mean, clearly the owner's gotta deal with that, but, it's all these things, like, the neighbor shouldn't have to deal with the fact that that's
Well,
going on.
and to your point, like I was telling you the story about my neighbor, I told her, I said, if you decide to sell that property, please come to me first, because I will buy it, because I don't want a short-term rental next to me.
Mhm.
You know, I would rather buy it and rent it so somebody in town here could afford to move there and be
Yeah,
part
yeah.
of this community.
Yep.
You know?
So anyways, to your point, this is a giant can of worms, and this is not, I'm not expecting to have any kind of great answer on anybody around what we need to do. But this is something that we need to work on, all of us.
And
That's really the point.
Carol?
So, I agree with all of that and talking about
We
short-term
agree,
rentals.
Carol?
And nice. I haven't got all of that.
All right, okay.
The other thing I haven't got to yet. The short-term rental conversation will be complicated. You've got families that have owned cottages for years, and 1 week out of the summer, they rent it to their cousin. That doesn't sound like the same thing to me.
No, that's, but are you, the
So,
thing is.
I'm just saying,
That's all
there's
supposed to.
intricacies in this
Right.
that'll take a long
Right,
time. to
and
work
there,
out.
and to be fair, there's other seasonal residents that come up here. They buy a property, they spend 8 or 10 weeks
Yeah.
here, but that property is expensive, so they say, let's rent it for a few weeks.
Right.
That's different.
So it may be,
And
so I'll.
Maybe, you're right.
So it may be, but here's what I will tell you. That's one of those areas where we don't want shades of gray.
Yeah.
We really want, in this community, for the sake of this community, to be consistent and transparent. I think we want to be, okay, if you rent it out, you rent it out. Like, it's a business. Now, if you're doing it to your cousin, I don't think that somebody's gonna, like, that's in the family. You know what I mean? Like, that.
They're not listing that on Airbnb or.
if somebody-
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
If somebody's renting it, they're renting it, and we need to probably treat it as such.
So and in my opinion, if people are renting out as a motel, hotel, as an apartment, they should have the same requirements as every motel in.
Well, so therein lies the
Across the
interesting
board.
challenge, which is why I'm saying.
Which is states,
We
not
treat it as
Rooms
a,
and meals.
we treat it as a business, because at the end of the day, there's not a requirement that says, if you're using Airbnb and you're sending it out, you have to sprinkle it and you have to do all of these other things that some of these other things do. So like, those are the pieces that I think we gotta
That's a long
try to sort out.
work, right?
Right? Anyways.
I think our main concern needs to be keeping this town affordable for the residents of this town.
There you go. Well,
And looking out for those who actually live here.
And also, and honestly, here's what I would say to you. I would probably say that a little bit differently. And the difference would be, you know what, if somebody buys here, they're trying to move here, eventually retire here, whatever, like, this community the strength of this community, in my opinion, has always been the fact that it's a very working, focused community. Okay? And to me, it would be sad to lose that heritage. Right? If I think back all the way to the 1800s when the tannery was around here, right? Like if when you go look at the history books and you go, okay, what kinds of things happened around here? When I consider the other communities like Meredith and others, they have some of the same history, they don't have the same heritage. Okay? And when you look at the way that they behave today, we have a charm that I truly don't want to lose. When you look at the survey results, remember we talked about that last time, Carol, right? You look at the survey results, that's the kind of stuff that the community wants to preserve. Okay, so it becomes how do you do that? And I think the only way you do that is you are very consistent around, if it's a rental, it's a rental. I'm sorry that you decided to afford the place, you rented it out for a month. It's still a rental. Renting it to your cousin, I'm not sure you're telling anybody anyway.
Sure, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, I just think this is something we gotta work on.
Yeah, and I'm 100% in agreement with that. So what I think I heard you say last time about the
Yes.
number of houses that are needed,
Yeah,
that number comes from outside of our town.
yep.
Somebody, Lakes Region Planning, whoever it is, somebody outside.
It's Lakes,
Concord,
it's a lot of different
Lakes
places.
Region
Lakes Region Planning, the state, all that.
People that
jazz.
don't live here have said, the state of New Hampshire is gonna grow this much, therefore Bristol, you need 275 houses.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's,
All right, so hold on. Listen, you can say it.
So, I had a big plan. So, and that's not how we should be planning our town, based on, so my problem with that is, someone outside is saying, Bristol, you need this many houses, we don't care what you think, we don't care what your master plan says, we don't care where you wanna go for your people.
Yep.
And you're the third person I've heard say, we've been told we have to have 275.
No, hold on.
I'm
There's
translating what I heard you say.
I get it. There's 275 is what they're saying is goes in based on the numbers, okay? Here's the deal. Here's the deal. You know, we talked a little, everybody I think agrees, we have a housing challenge. Okay? We have a housing affordability challenge.
Sure.
Okay. So when you have a housing affordability challenge, whether it's, let's just say we all disagree with the 275 and make it 50. Over the next 10 years, the growth of this town is gonna be 50 houses. Okay? That's, what is, as a percentage, that's like nothing, right? Over 10 years. Okay? So we're basically flat. So we're saying that effectively, we need to figure out where those things go. That's sort of my biggest problem. When you look at the land masses that's left, where do we put them? We can't do things in steep slopes. We want to make sure we preserve that. We need to preserve obviously our wetlands and the things around the lake. We need to preserve our industry, which is the vistas that create the vacation spot. Like, we need to preserve all that stuff. But at the same time, you need to give the opportunity for the folks that have families here, and the families want to buy in and grow here. So like, we just need to be thoughtful in where these things go. It's not about 275, it's about what's the plan, what industries do we want to have here? Are we a bedroom community, or are we only a vacation and retirement community? So those are the points that I'm trying to get to.
Okay, I would challenge all of us not to follow the guidance of someone from outside on how many buildings, how many houses we need. We should probably stop throwing that number around.
Well, but here's the deal.
That's what I'm saying.
No, I hear you, but here's the challenge. If we don't put a line in the sand and try to go, what's it based on? It's kind of like the discussion that I want to have when land use finishes telling us how much an average house costs, how much the average salary costs. We're going to be able to back into a number very quickly. Every contractor in the area says to build a house around here is between $300 and $400 a square foot. So we can easily do the math to go, houses cost this, the salaries around here cost that. This is where the working environment is. We'll be able to map out mathematically where people need to be, okay? If we don't base our plan on some factor, we can't just say, yeah, we only think it's 50. If they're saying it's 275 and it's based on growth in surveys, whether we achieve that or not is different than us having a plan for where stuff goes. It's the same thing when we talk about workforce housing, right? We need to have a strategy around how that's gonna work, where in town, how do we deal with density? It's the same thing around why we were saying we need to have a conversation around sewage, right? Because sewage and water are the things that enable us to have denser housing. So to achieve some of these pieces, it's those pieces, right? So anyway, there you go.
I don't know if, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We need to make sure there's a bunch of houses here, and then everyone that lives in and works in Tilton.
Everyone lives and works in Tilton.
Everyone that moves here to these houses now works in Tilton. We've done nothing for the economy.
That's correct.
Except that, well, they're going out to restaurants and that type of thing. And that's why the workforce housing definition always sends me into a frazzle. Because no one says, workforce housing here means you have to work in Bristol. No, you got workforce housing, maybe it's subsidized, but you can work in Ashland.
Well, and that's exactly when they pitched the workforce housing at Swiftwater Drive was, oh, well, they're putting in new hotels, they're expanding Tenny Mountain Highway, and they can go work there.
Right. So it's, that's, my concern is, there are people in town that don't want it to change dramatically. And that's there are a fair number of them who we should consider as well.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
It doesn't negate the fact, though, that from a planning perspective, when we think about our zoning, so think about the planning, the master plan and the planning board, as all we're really doing is setting up the rules of the road, right? Great example of that is the stuff at the lake right now, okay? We had a zoning ordinance that basically said if you wanted to build a building out at the lake,
if you were in the Lake District and you tore it down and wanted to go up higher, more than 1 foot, you had to go ask for permission from zoning, right? Okay. Well, the way it was actually written and is such that only if it's a non-conforming lot, okay? So if somebody tears something down and puts up, they can go to 35 feet, because that's a state legal limit.
If it's exactly the same.
Well, no,
If
no,
it's
if you can build a conforming structure on that property, you can go to 35 feet right now. So we had a situation on on Browns Beach where somebody was like, hey, somebody's tearing down a house, they're going back where they're tearing down a non-conforming structure, they want to go back with a conforming structure, so they're going to 35 feet, now my view's gone. So at a planning board level, we're going, okay, well, should we consider the height of the buildings in general in the Lake District for conforming structure, right? Like, so the reason I bring that up is, it's not that I'm trying to chop off every house that's in the Lake District. It's more like for a futures perspective. It's the same thing when we talk about the 275. At least the 275 is based in numbers. If contractors don't come to build them here, or people that own the properties don't want to develop their properties in that way, they don't have to. But the fact of the matter is, we have to think about zoning and for the community that's here. And Rob, I completely agree with you. Like, my biggest concern, I think about the residents here and how we're helping them transform as a workforce, right? I look at the businesses that are leaving our community right now, and it gives me a little bit of agita. Like, I sit back and I'm like, okay. And every one of them, by the way, when you get into it, they're like, there's a specific reason that it's happening. It's just a lot at once, and it's making me think, okay, what is our industries? Why are they our industries? Where are our strengths? How do we need to work together to make sure that this community is solid? Anyways, there you go.
I'm with you, right there, that's fine.
Just a quick look at Airbnb came up with 20 short-term rentals in Bristol.
Yeah.
And that was just one site.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of.
It's like, where do we start? We just need a starting point.
Put the permitting on the ballot.
Oh, we
So you don't have to
not
put
this
the
year.
permitting on the ballot. You have short-term rentals, but part of the problem is they've allowed them in more than a few districts, and then they only.
It's in zoning now.
Yeah, so short-term rentals is in zoning now. You don't have to put the permitting on the ballot necessarily. There's other ways that you can do it, but I've just emailed the attorney because I have a question. I'd
Yeah,
like to
couldn't we-
clarify first before you.
Let's get it in process and start a permitting process.
Could we ask people's opinion at town meeting? Is that what you're saying, or you?
No, I'm saying start a permitting process, so if you wanna have an Airbnb in town, you have to have a permit.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I
Short-term
mean.
rental.
I need.
Personally, that's what I
Short-term
I need-
rental.
So, but they
Sorry,
got
short-term, whatever.
Short-term rental. Airbnb is a one form.
Short-term rental.
Even if you're renting.
Airbnb is
It's
a
a
platform.
corporate name.
Rent to your
It's a
cousin.
corporate entity.
Yes, Airbnb is a platform that somebody can use.
It's like calling this a mobile computer.
I understand, yes. Forgive me, please. Yes.
That's okay, no code.
Well,
Pepsi.
This is not my wheelhouse, sir. But I appreciate the educate, well, I mean. maybe
Whatever,
not my wheelhouse,
we're all in this together.
Yeah.
So, there you
So
go.
I would like to, unfortunately, I'm out of town for your next meeting, which is next Wednesday, but.
Okay.
Me too.
What's that?
Me too.
Oh, is the
Yeah, I'll be
alternate
there.
available?
Yeah.
Don's coming.
But I would like to, maybe come in, or the December 11th, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to try and get in,
Awesome.
yeah.
Anyways, so that, again, I'm not looking, there's not a single one of these things that we're working on that we're gonna come in and go, yep, that's it, right? Like, this is all stuff that requires a real thoughtful approach around what we're doing and how we wanna do it as a community.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
And lastly, we've had this conversation, we do have a strong conservative and, I don't want to say libertarian bent in the community that has a lot of concerns about private property rights. And
Yeah.
so this has to include everybody in the conversation, not just the people that are on the side of whatever, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because I think that it's a big conversation.
It is, but the one thing I will say to everybody,
Yeah.
planning board is second and fourth Wednesday, and everybody, I mean, I've had more conversations with this over
Yeah.
beers at different spots, and folks, you're right, are generally very passionate in a one-on-one. And what I say to folks all the time is, I hear the passion, that's awesome. Like, a difference of opinion is a good thing.
Right, it starts talking.
But come to the meeting, because this is how you're gonna do it, right? Like, you influence us by coming and having a conversation.
I think you said that Scott put it on Facebook.
Just to your point, I agree. Yeah. So I completely
Get the conversations that, no,
I completely agree with, like, I don't want people telling me what I can do, can and can't do on my property. But you also need to consider, you know, to the point of, is it affecting my neighbors?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and this affects your neighbors.
And that's the
for
purpose
sure.
of zoning.
What's that?
That's the purpose.
That is the
zoning.
purpose of zoning.
That
Yeah.
You can, it's a blend between what you know, allowing you to do with your property what you want, and that not annoying everybody else.
Right, exactly, so.
But we're also talking the difference of, I mean, if you put your kid that went off to college, if you put their room up on a platform where you can rent it out, and you're still living there, that's a whole different scenario than somebody coming and buying your neighbor's house, and then
Making a business.
they're not living there, they're just renting it all the time. Then it's a business, it's no longer a residence.
Yeah.
So the whole thing of it's my property, I can do with what I want, it's fine if it's your residence, if it's business, that's a whole different thing.
Well, that's a great point, you know,
That's-
you could take a senior, says, you know, I have a 3-bedroom house, I live here alone, I'd like to rent out a room, and I put in an ad in the paper, and somebody came, I rented my room out. Are we gonna chase that person with a $500 permit fee?
That's what exemptions are for.
What's that?
That's what exemptions are for.
But Carol.
Resident lives there,
I got it.
exemption.
I know, but
But-
exemptions cost
That's a
people money.
long-term.
But hey, Carol.
They
Oh,
all-
that's a long-term rental, that's not a short-term rental.
Correct, and Carol, here's the deal. Here's the
Short-term
deal.
rentals
So we don't need
30
to,
days.
we don't need to get in the weeds here, sorry.
No,
Yeah, no.
you're all good, but here's the one thing I would say to you to consider, okay? When you look at the impact of the cost of the houses in the area, when we have this buying and renting stuff the way that we're doing it today.
Yeah.
It's the long-term impact to the community is much more detrimental in the way we're managing it today, because we're not really managing it, okay?
I don't disagree with
Versus
that.
figuring that out. So what I would say to you is consider that. I'm not a big believer of, listen, these poor guys get really annoyed at me on a regular basis when I get started about permits. And because I do, like, I'll be damned, I don't want anybody waking up in the morning going, I gotta go ask permission at town hall to figure out whether I can do something. That drives me nuts if I feel like that's going on, right?
Yeah.
So believe me, we talk about this in that manner all the time. But we have to consider the long-term impact to the community and what some of these things happen, right? Like how these things happen.
And
Anyways,
that's governing officials,
all right,
that's your job.
sorry.
Did you have something before we
No.
move on?
No, I'm gonna follow up.
Okay.
I have to follow up with both of you. I just emailed something to the town's attorney because I need to clarify something.
Okay. We probably just got the Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Great
All right,
report.
here goes the legal line again.
Thank you. Well, you
Sorry.
know, Don said annoyed, and yeah, I do that on a regular basis, so it's all good. Thank you. Have a great night.
You as
Thank you.
well.
Appreciate you listening.
All right. Have a good afternoon and good evening.
Thank you.
Chief LaRoche.
Keep it short.
EMS contracts.
I won't say that, I won't talk.
So,
Those are under number 9 for you.
EMS contracts, could you give us a brief synopsis for the public regarding the
Yep.
changes in EMS contracts?
So, as you know, like the last meeting or 2 meetings ago or something, we came in and said, here's the EMS contracts. If we move forward with the status quo, how we've done EMS basically for the last at least 20 years that I've been here, roughly 24 years, and quite honestly beyond. However, that we had at the time meetings scheduled with the fire chiefs of the contract towns, which ultimately turned into meetings with the select boards of the contract towns to say this needs to be the year that, like the strategic plan identified, that we need to increase staffing. The EMS contracts are a huge benefit, not just to the EMS contract towns, which they are. You know, we submitted information to them that if they wanted to try to do something on their own, regardless of what that is, it's a minimum $500,000. It's probably really $1 million project for them to do that. And so obviously at whatever the contracts are, whether it's they're paying $50,000 or $200,000 or $300,000, it's a benefit to them. And they're getting a service at a level that they're never, it will take years to build up to, and maybe you never get to, quite honestly, period. Regardless of, you know, also the additional that they're fire service trained personnel. If it's a motor vehicle accident, there's extras that come of that, fires, whatever. So there's that benefit to the contract towns. There's the huge benefit to the town of Bristol at the end of the day that we take what, at least the budget moving forward this year is roughly $1.5 million. And we capture revenue from doing the EMS contracts to the other 3 towns of about $430,000 would be the status quo number. So approximately a quarter of that, and then the rest of the EMS program, we're bringing in another 300,000 plus in billing revenue, and so we're trying to maintain that number around revenue that offsets the fire department budget being about 50% of it, with only, and I understand that's still $750,000, but only 50% of that entire budget then needed to be raised by taxes. So that's a huge benefit to the town. We staff basically at minimum staffing right now, 2 people on 24/7, and then there's some administrative staff. If we didn't do the EMS contracts, we would have a $1.5 million fire department, and we would bring in the roughly $300,000 in billing, and that'd be it, and we'd still be on the hook to raise $1.2 million in taxes, right? So there's just the base, here's the financial, why it's a benefit to both parties, why it's symbiotic, so to speak, right? So there's a lot of value in keeping that going. There's a lot of value to the contract towns, there's a lot of value to the town of Bristol. We're beyond a point, we're certainly at a point where in order to keep doing that, in order to keep providing that service, we have to more regularly be able to get out a second ambulance. We're doing closer to 300 second and third EMS calls. That's roughly a call a day. That's a lot of second EMS calls that the first person that calls the ambulance gets the service that we've always been providing, and the second gets a little bit less, right? Because it takes longer to get the ambulance out. Maybe it's a mutual aid ambulance that's coming, whatever the scenario is. So, and we've been pretty open throughout the process of building the strategic plan and moving forward that in order for the town of Bristol to still do what's routinely about 400 calls a year in the contract towns, we need to add staff, and it needs to be basically 100% revenue neutral, being that those 3 towns then pick up the cost of what that's going to be. So we moved forward, we had that discussion with everybody. It was certainly more favorably received in, you know, this place, and a little less here and a little less here. But overall, there's a general understanding that it's a great service. It does need to continue. Maybe we're gonna start getting to a point where there's discussions in a couple years of, does another town do something different, whatever. My point to them is, those are all conversations I don't wanna have, because I think it can still benefit the system and still make the system work. But for the next 5 years, what are we gonna do, right? Which is how long it's gonna take for conversations like that to happen, which the answer is we need to go to 3 per shift, 24 hours a day. In order to do that, we have to hire 3.5 people, which doesn't totally work all the time, so it's roughly 4. And we've taken that number, put it into a budget, and said, you know, for year 1, of the cost. So those contracts are what we're looking to have signed tonight, and they'll ultimately physically get presented to them. But I presented those numbers, which is that cost for year one, and it's a little higher because of some upfit and the startup to it, is $254,000. That's a July 1 hire through the end of the year. And I say that's a little high because of the way it will work within the contracts and some of those upfit costs going. It doesn't mean that next year it's a $508,000 cost, because it's gonna look different. But that $254,000 got divided equally to, I don't have it sitting in front of you, roughly $85,000 a town. And the towns are getting billed that $85,000. So, yes, it means we're adding full-time staff to the fire department, but it's 100% revenue neutral in that we're gonna get that $85,000. And quite honestly, a potential benefit or revenue positive in that it should mean significantly less, not a lot go to mutual aid right now, but significantly less calls that then go to mutual aid, that then that billing revenue goes to New Hampton or Bridgewater or Franklin or whoever covers that call. That would be the potential positive. It's not a huge number, but it's still a positive in the gains category. So that's the contract that you have is kind of that example, like I do every year. They're all three the same, except for the names get changed of the towns. The plan would be they get presented that, they know it's coming. They know what the numbers are. They know what the potential numbers are going to be next year on the high end. And so that effectively the status quo of our normal staffing profile as it sits today and our normal expenses as it sits today will continue to be the base standard EMS service rate. That will still, as we move forward with contracts, still always be the same thing. And we're going to take the cost, or the majority of the cost, at least the 3 people, maybe the 3.5, however we ultimately decide to do it in future contracts, and that goes into here's the additional staffing number. It gets divided by 3, and each one of the 3 towns, Hill, Alexandria, and Danbury, pay that 1/3 of the cost, and it's neutral to the town of Bristol, who still then continues to benefit from now there's 3 firefighter EMS providers on 24 hours a day. Those second calls are happening in Bristol, those second, first and second calls, because we do such a higher volume than everybody else. It's a huge benefit to us that is not, certainly in year 1, and then for at least those 3 positions is not going to cost us any more money. So that's what you have in front of you. We can go into more detail, but that's where we are at. I feel very comfortable that the towns are, again, nobody loves the idea that their EMS contract is going to go up $85,000 next year. One of the speaking points in Hill, one of the selectmen said, oh gee, if 5 years ago we were at 37,000, and now next year it's about 141 in 2025, but 2026 you're talking around or about $200,000. And I said to him, I said, listen, if I was here just asking it for $200,000 to do what we've always done, I wouldn't be here. I can't come in here and say, yeah, we're going to go from what's now been 60 for the last couple of years to 200,000. Just deal with it, right? That's not being good neighbors or going to get us very far. This is truly to enhance the service that we're already providing for all 4 towns that are involved in the EMS system, and make sure that it's sustainable for another 5 or 10 years. Maybe it looks different in 5 or 10 years. My guess is it probably doesn't. It's probably then that's when we're going to 4 or whatever, or adding a day shift. There's all sorts of possibilities for the future. But as we're now going to surpass 1,500 calls a year, potentially even 1,600 calls this year, that's a lot for 2 people in 1 truck to be doing when it then produces 300 or better second EMS calls in that period. So.
And wait till we add 275 houses.
The benefit is call guys and EMS providers might live in those houses. So.
One other quick thing that I'll throw in there to this is not only are the statistics increasing, but also the workload on those individuals is increasing, but because it's no longer turn and burn to Franklin Hospital. You're going to Concord and Dartmouth on a regular basis. And it's not what it was 10 or 15 years ago where you filled out your run sheet on the way to the hospital and then you drop your run sheet off at the hospital and we're done with that call. It's these guys come back from that call and they've got half an hour, 45 minutes, sometimes depending on the call, even an hour's worth of paperwork that they have to accomplish in addition to the calls that they're providing the service when the service is called for.
Yeah, we went to Concord, and it doesn't seem like a high number, but understand that a trip to Franklin basically means that, I call it committed time when I presented it to these other towns, that ambulance is committed for about 77 minutes, right? And that's based on, if it's from Bristol, maybe it's 48 to 52 minutes, but if you're coming from Alexandria or Danbury, that time starts to stretch out. So it's about 77 minutes of committed time. So from the time of the tone until they're realistically back in service, 10 minutes out from being able to, they can respond, but they're not sitting in downtown Franklin or downtown Plymouth. And they can respond to an additional call. When you go to Concord, that number, pushes to 112 minutes. Now you're starting to push a 2-hour commitment time. They're not even back yet, right? There's still stuff to do and maybe restocking to do, but it's roughly 2 hours that you cannot respond to another call. Dartmouth is, it's like a 3.5-hour commitment depending on where you started that ride, how serious the patient is, what the turnaround. And so that's why I just preface that these don't sound like huge numbers, but last year, 2023, it was either 36 or 39, I always flip them back or forth. 36 or 39 times, I think it was 36. 36 times we transported to Concord the entire year. That's 3 times a month. That was still a big commitment. I think we hit 57 the other day, and there's still 2 months of the year left, right? So it's more and more, and I've always said it, and I will die on this sword. I want to take patients to the hospital that they need to go to. That should be our number one priority. It's not, well, just take them to Franklin because it's way closer and we can get back in service. If the right hospital's Concord, if it's CMC, the Elliott, Portsmouth, wherever that hospital is, we very rarely go to those types of hospitals, but wherever that hospital is, that's where the patient should go. That's the best thing that we can do for the patient that had a medical issue in our community and is maybe a community member. Dartmouth, I don't know what the latest numbers are. I know that when we put the numbers together in September, we had gone 19 times all of 2023, and we were at 18 in September. And I know we've been at least twice since then, and I missed some of them because I'm sleeping. My guys and girls aren't, but so again, they seem like small numbers, 3 times a month, 2 times a month, whatever, but they're double, triple commitment times that just increase that amount of now there's a second call. And I recognize we're in public, and I'm not trying to bash our mutual aid partners. They're having issues as well as we have as far as getting people and per diem staff and call members. They're largely supported by per diem and call members, and if they're having issues, they become not less good, that's poor grammar, but they're not bad mutual aid partners. They're just less reliable than they were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And this is just the truth of them. It's conversations that Chief Kathy and I have had, and Jake and Don, Chief Atwood and I have had. They're struggling and they're burning out the people that they do have. And then there's just times where they can't respond like they used to. And when that happens, we've got to, it's our problem ultimately. Fortunately for most of those, it doesn't then create the problem where we're going there a lot more because we really are. Maybe New Hampton a little bit toward the beginning of the year, but Chief Kathy's figured that out. So yeah, to Rob's point, we're going a lot of other places. Or today somehow we went to Franklin, got diverted from Franklin because their CT was down, and we went to go to Spear, or Spear didn't want that patient, and then they ended up in Concord. So that commitment time is going to be quite excessive.
And you're providing a higher level of service than you
Yeah.
were 20 years ago as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which takes longer.
Right.
It's no longer pick somebody up, get them to the hospital as quick as you can. These guys are stabilizing patients before they even leave the patient's dooryard, and then basically, getting to the hospital in less of an emergent situation.
Right.
So it's a far greater benefit to the taxpayer.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. Anybody want to make a motion?
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the Town of Bristol's emergency medical service agreement for 2025 with the towns of Alexandria, Danbury, and Hill.
Second that.
I think Carol has it. Motion by Scott, second by Carol, to approve the EMS contracts for the towns of Hill, Danbury, and Alexandria. That's effective dates are
July 1.
July 1 of 2025 to June 30th of 2026.
Correct.
Yes. Any further discussion?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Chief. Oh, no, you're not done yet.
Got a list of stuff to do.
Let's talk about the defibrillator purchase.
So that's the purchase order now on top, it's done through the system now.
Yeah. Do you want me to sign it?
No, I just
You wanted
want,
me to see that?
it's a different purchase
Okay.
order number than they're seeing potentially.
Yeah, so this request is based on the previous discussion that we had that when the new ambulance arrives in roughly March of next year, that we're gonna keep A1. So we discussed it at the time that there was some upfit that was going to have to be done. There's some work that will get done a little bit at a time. Mechanically, really physically on the ambulance, the cab corners are starting to go. But to do it so that we can have a license, right? We can't just say we have a reserve ambulance and when we need it, we can move all the equipment off of the second ambulance, or the ambulance that's going out for service, or whatever the case may be. We'll just move it to the other ambulance. You can't do that. You have to, the state shows up and there needs to be all the equipment on the one ambulance, the other ambulance, and the other ambulance, and then all three of them each get their own sticker. So we're not gonna fully outfit that ambulance. Obviously through grant funds, we were able to put Lucas devices on everyone, which are compression devices for CPR. We were able to put pumps on the two trucks. We're not gonna put a pump on that stuff that's not required equipment. So we can move that in those out of service times. That's also stuff that we can, not pumps, vents. That's also stuff that we can deal with the resources that we have, just the way we always did before there were such fancy things as Lucas machines and vents. So obviously a monitor, we just bought monitors a few years back. They were roughly $25,000 a piece. They're a little bit over $30,000 a piece now. This is for a refurbished monitor from a refurbishing company that we've dealt with in the past that's highly reputable. It keeps us with the Zoll X series, which means we're maintaining one maintenance contract. Obviously it'll go up a few $100s a year. But we'll also, just to say, one of the reasons we went with Zoll is Zoll traditionally has been a company, unlike some of the other defib manufacturers or radio manufacturers, that even though Zoll might go from the X series to the Z series at some point in 5 to 10 or 20 years, they continue to support and service those machines and don't say, hey, sorry you bought it 5 years ago, but we're gonna stop servicing it in 2 years. So it keeps us with that monitor for all the same reasons we went to it. This is a refurbished monitor. It's the exact same monitor we have with the exact same equipment, accoutrements to do the monitoring that we have to do and that we're used to being able to do. And it's $16,995. So maybe a little over, but about half of what a new unit costs. This is by far the biggest cost to keep that ambulance in service. The rest of those costs are in the neighborhood of $8,000 worth of radio expenses, and about $4,000 worth of loose equipment that we don't have in stock that we'd have to put on the truck to get it licensed. So, and we'll take care of that a little at a time. Some of that's budgeted for next year's budget. Some of it I believe I can deal with in this year's budget, provided year end kind of keeps on track. But this is definitely absorbable within this year's budget. And I would ask to get it approved so that we can take care of that now. I didn't want to have to ask for 17 grand in next year's budget, so if we do
There's a
it.
different purchase order number than what you see on his memo.
Oh, yeah.
So,
I filled out an old purchase order, but I gotta use a
We're
new
doing
purchase order.
purchase orders through the system now, and that's the first one.
Oh, boy.
So the plan is to take this out of the operating budget, not
Yes.
us?
Yeah.
Okay. You got it.
The line it's being booked to is written onto it, onto that purchase order. It was our test one, so it'll be on
Okay.
there normally.
Yes.
This doesn't include the amount, right?
I don't believe so, but I believe that Matt had a line on amount that we could get either for really cheap or for free from another service.
Excellent.
Make a motion to approve purchase order 2024-1001. Second.
Okay, motion by Scott, second by Dawn to approve purchase order 204-0.
2024-1001.
2024-1001. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry. Slow.
Will you?
I'm in favor.
Okay.
I was a little slow.
Not that it matters, but,
He had 275 on his brain.
vote
Not that
passes.
bad.
Trying to figure out
Except
where
for
to fill all those.
$275.
Got everyone?
All right. Town administrator.
No,
Nope, sorry. Public safety building. Did you have something you want to talk about?
There's not a lot, I guess, just hit really quick that, because it's come up before in the past, there was, some issues between the permit and the work that was done as far as capping the water lines. That's been done. That's really the last big item on the really the punch list is done. That's one of the last big items. There's still some paperwork and housekeeping, but in general, we're in post punch list warranty work land. So, which is good. Really the only thing we kind of keep having problems with, but the flooring guy's been excellent every time he's been out, and has addressed it. Some of it maybe came down to we're still not at a point where we have all that paperwork done. So there was some discussion, well, it says right in the material that you should clean the floor this way. Well, I don't have that material, so thanks for telling me, and we'll change that practice. So we're continuing to have little areas that the floor would peel up or bubble up. They're out, the guy lives like in Franklin, so he's out very quick. He handles it, does it a different way. Some of it's around where they had to cut floor drains and whatnot out after the slab being poured, and that kind of, in that 2x2 area disturbed the vapor barrier to a degree that now right around that drain, that's typically where we're having the issues, is around a couple of the floor drains or clean outs. They've kind of switched to a different adhesive, knock on wood, so far it seems to have done the trick. Changing the cleaning practices to the manufacturer's recommendation, we shouldn't have any more problems with it, but everything else has been dealt with or is being dealt with.
Just a quick question on the issue with the drain. Is that taken care of?
No, but we should have an actual conversation about
Okay.
that.
Not trying to be
not here,
secretive.
but
yeah.
at some point to just discuss some details that, yeah.
Okay. Scott, did you have a
Have you
question?
tested out the heating system yet?
Yes, can I ask? The sewage drain,
Yes.
Yes.
that's what you're talking. So far, that hasn't replicated itself, and I'm still waiting on contact from Rob on what they're gonna do to make sure that that's a long-term solution. So, yeah, we had a whole conversation about that the other day, in-house between both departments, and, it seems to be fine. I think there's maybe some other reasons why it happened than exactly what we thought, you know, potentially. Sorry, Scott. What was the
Okay.
question?
Is the heating system working?
The heating system's
Tested it out.
working. The forced hot air system is working better since we turned the propane on to the units. I only kind of heard that it was like an over the weekend thing as like the cold started to happen, and everybody's like, we programmed these things to keep it at 68 or something, whatever it was. Man, it's just chilly. Like it's warm enough, but it's chilly. And lo and behold, they had not turned the propane on to the units, so then we fired them up and they were fine. The radiant heat we just put on yesterday or the day before, and we were told by the installer that would be kind of like a 3-day, and then at 3 days, like just set it to here, set it to 58 to get the system going, and then adjust it. If you start playing with it too much, you're never going to figure it out, because you'll get it really hot and then it'll get turned down, and just get everything warmed up over that 3 days and go from there. So whatever, tomorrow or over the weekend they can start adjusting that, but it seems a little bit more comfortable. It wasn't super, and obviously the last 2 days, then all of a sudden it got to 75 again for whatever reason it did that, but we'll probably just leave it in that 50 zone just to make sure, and then, if cold weather ever comes, we'll adjust it at this point, but.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I put all 3 contracts in, I sent all 3 contracts.
Yeah, they're all set.
All right, there, do you want to take them? Because I signed it already.
Sure, then I don't have to come back.
Yep, you're all set.
Safe for you.
All right, Christine.
Sorry, I was gonna open this and it's not, there we go. We already touched base on the public safety building. Highway department, for those who are here, can see the new truck outside. For those online or on the TV, this is the new truck has been received. We're working on getting it all ready to go. It's all ready to go, we just have to get plates transferred over. We will be working on putting up the truck that it's replacing through a sealed bid process to dispose of the other truck, so.
Who wants to buy it?
Yeah, anybody wants to buy it, but stay tuned, it'll be posted online. Employee November anniversary dates, we just wanted to take a moment to recognize the people from November. Phil Brunel of the fire department for 3 years, Joel Fermanic, water and sewer department for 19 years, Richard Poitras with the highway department for 10 years, Danielle Reed, fire department 5 years, Alec Thompson, fire department 2 years, and Brian Tracy with the police department for 1 year. I don't know if there's anything under your items for information only that anybody wants to talk about. They're written out on the TA report for you.
Anybody have any questions?
I do have another report for after. I'm just opening that up. You guys do not have this. These are a couple of additional items that I had to add. It's not up there. Do you have anything on the other report before I move on?
What other report?
In the tier.
Not in the, I
Sorry.
Just didn't read them off.
yeah, the informational items.
Yeah, the
Questions.
information only, if
Oh, I
there's
get it. Oh,
anything
okay.
specific you have questions about, I can answer, otherwise that's just general information.
Yeah.
On the other items, Dead River contracts, obviously, we're starting to fill the department, which is good news. We've been shorthanded, we did not go out for RFP, and I just wanna make sure the board's okay with that, because the heating the heating season is fast upon us. So Dead River has guaranteed the same rates that we had for both oil and propane. It's the same exact that we were doing for 2023, and I just want to make sure the board's okay with that. The plan is, with now that we have the full department, or we will have the full department, we will start doing RFPs in 2025, so. There was a question in the past, I was following up, random drug testing. There was a question about whether the highway department had to do it or not. And it does say it's not, we did reach out and found out that it's not about which department the employees work for, it is about them having a CDL endorsement. Anyone who works for Bristol who has a CDL endorsement, which they use to perform their job, not the fire department, is required to participate, I don't know what this acronym is, it's FMCSA.
Federal Motor Carrier.
Workplace Drug Alcohol Testing Program. It's not a state RSA, it's federal, so that's why we have to do that. And
Have a good night, Walt.
Thank you.
Tax rate setting, I did reach out to the school and I've gotten a response. They have asked for an extension. Now their extension is through November 15th.
I've asked for another extension?
Yep, so November 15th is their next extension. They think they're feeling better about it. I've gotten an invite to talk with Angela, and so I'm gonna do that. We have one more document to provide the bond attorney, not the bond attorney, the TAN attorney. We have one more document to provide them. We had to prove when the town voted to allow TANs, which we were able to find that, but then we had to go find the town report with the actual wording that it passed. So we've done that, and we've supplied, we had to prove what 2023 tax rate levy was, and we've supplied him that. We have one more document to supply him, and then we think we'll be ready to move forward with the TAN. We are keeping track, obviously, we just paid for the truck, we're asking for the money from the trustees already. We're transferring money for the water and sewer, so we're keeping a really close eye on the cash until we can get the TAN in place. We did receive the county bill today. It's due December 17th. It's $1,030,000. So we definitely will need the TAN in for that bill especially. So that's where we're still moving forward with it. It's just a lot more of a process to get everything to the attorney, so. Okay.
All right.
Whoops, no, sorry, not done. Nice try. Just one more time. Oh, we already talked about that. I just wanted to touch base on election closeout. I don't need it tonight. I can email you tomorrow. And I just want to get input on if something particular about a process that you might want to see done differently. I also emailed a couple of questions that we were talking about earlier to the town's attorney just to confirm. So I'll share that with you as soon as I get that as well. But I'll ask you each individually for your input on something you'd like to see done differently. I will give you a heads up that the town car has to go into the shop. It sat too long and now it has an exhaust leak. So we were able to use it at least for shuttle services, but now we're gonna try and get it done now out of this year's budget, so.
Where are we bringing it?
I think probably to the same place that the PD brings their vehicles,
Which is?
New Hampton. I hadn't picked yet, because I just didn't know for sure.
I just want to make sure it doesn't go to a dealership.
No, it's not, no. It's going, definitely won't go to a dealership, but New Hampton was the one I was gonna go to, because that's where PD's been taking their vehicles, so. I think that's all on my list, unless somebody reminds me of something. Oh, I will tell you, the signage is one step closer. I talked, signage for this, we're gonna be moving that sign out here up the hill a little and towards where I park. It's gonna be the existing sign, we're just moving it. Victor has guaranteed that it'll be moved by November 22nd. Ben's crew is digging the hole, putting the posts in, and cementing them in, and they've guaranteed that they will do that by November 22nd. We signed both proofs, and I'm gonna email her back tonight. I think after November 22nd, they'll install the new sign at the public safety building, and they'll install the replacement sign out here. My thoughts are to cover it, depending on when they sign, we're gonna cover it, but it might be too cold to do an outdoor ceremony. So, we can see when it's delivered, but I'll know more once I'm gonna finish emailing her back tonight, so.
Okay. Select board items, Scott.
We talked about the planning board and more or less we covered that. Yeah, and just voting, was it, we had super turnout. I think even if we would have had it at the fire department, I think parking would have been overwhelmed at that location also.
Yeah.
With the turnout we had. So we just look forward to working with the new superintendent, Mr. Horace, and hopefully the future will be bright as far as voting goes.
After March.
For the next school year.
Yes.
During the next school year, because they gotta plan that school year calendar out.
Carol.
Did we make arrangements, I can't remember what we decided, with DOT or the town to put gravel along the edge of the road at the spring? Before
Joanne
stuff starts
did
to freeze.
reach out to the highway department. The state isn't going to do it, but the highway department will drop it off.
Okay.
So I just don't, I will ask, I just don't, I can't.
Where are you talking about?
Along the edge of the road in the spring,
The shoulder at the spring.
along the hot top at the spring.
Oh, at the spring?
Yes,
At the spring.
yes.
I thought you were saying in the spring.
Looks like they or somebody did at the parking lot.
Beyond, so the state is the one beyond.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so.
And they were fixing
I
the
was thinking they could've
guardrails
just
further
dropped over.
too.
Should have just done both.
Yeah. I'll double check, I know, I did see the email and went to the highway department and they said they would, I'll just confirm a time frame.
Okay.
State won't touch it until it starts undermining the road.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm gonna follow up on the voting thing. This conversation's been going on since I got on the board, and we failed the citizens of this town to make a good place for them to park and go to vote. We have to fix this for March. We have to, I don't know, we can't do March because the school can't get their
The
calendar?
calendars are already set.
Okay, let's find another way to do this. Let's talk about it. I'm just, I don't know how, the new fire station for one round, whatever.
Is there a reason we can't use this road?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this.
There's certain, I think Ned said there are certain
We
distances.
used it before.
We did,
Oh,
but
we did use it
they
once.
did complain it was too tight, so you could pretend, I think there probably is a way, but you'd have to use the lobby and potentially the hallway and have people go out. The good news is now there is a restriction, because we can shut the door and keep people out of the other side of the
Right,
building.
right.
Now, there is a door now, but it's something that would have, the layout would, I will let you know too what I hear back, but the layout could be
I mean,
rediscussed.
can we make this a work session or
This would be
topic for
so
next
much
meeting?
easier.
Well,
So we get on it early enough.
You gotta do
It's-
something.
It's too bad that you couldn't even say, and I know this would never work, because you have to have it in one location, but it's too bad that you couldn't have like a handicap voting spot here at least.
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah,
But-
I can't.
But no, I think we're all in agreement, Carol, and I think it's a discussion we need to have.
Sooner.
Not tonight, but.
No, sooner rather than later.
You know,
We
maybe
have
the next
always
meeting or
been
so.
under the
Oh, I do
impression
one more thing.
that that decision was out of our hands.
Yes.
And have had a lot of pushback when we've suggested other places. So it would be good to find out how that decision's made.
Yeah. I did email.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Les?
And-
Oh, I'm sorry,
Les,
Carol.
any report back on the conversation on the 10-year plan at LRPC?
No.
Okay.
I'll follow
Thank you.
up.
Okay.
No, I'll, when you're done, I just have two more things, go ahead.
That would be more buzzes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead, and I'll, yeah.
So two things. One, Budget Committee met, and really taking a look at the budget, as much as they want to make some cuts to be able to make cuts, they're not seeing areas that they're going to, so they're hoping maybe they could find 100,000 in the budget, but in different areas to try to cull it down a little bit. But they feel like we've done a good job of giving a budget that was what we need, not what we want. So that was a good meeting. We meet again next week. And then the only other thing is, we talked about it a little bit at town meeting, is it would be great to have that handicap entrance power washed and painted, because it's pretty deplorable looking.
I wondered if it was starting to rot too.
Didn't look
It
at it,
doesn't-
but they might want to look at it.
Good.
That was it.
Don?
I have one more thing.
Can we go back to the so the building is peeling, not just the handicapped entrance. If you look at the front of the building, it's peeling all the way up in a lot of spaces. That's gonna be a huge expense, but I don't, at some point, so it's something to keep in mind.
That's
Just
gonna be a
putting it
warrant-
out there.
That's gonna be a warrant article.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be a
It's
warrant
gonna be
article.
$25,000.
I don't
Select
think.
board work detail.
Well, and I don't think it's next year. I think it's something you need to keep an eye on going to, because it is starting, it was peeling last year. It was peeling when I did the last inspection with L-chip, so I don't know how, I haven't really looked since then.
That's what I was gonna
how-
say, is how does that fall into the L-chip thing?
It's we're done with L-chip.
Yeah.
Our stewardship agreement's done with them, so, but I did the final inspection and it was in there, peeling done, but I just haven't, I should go take a look, cause I know what it looked like before and see if it looks worse, so,
Why is North Main Street gonna be closed tomorrow?
Because they're putting a water, going from the center to the water main across the street.
yeah.
It's supposed to be 8 to 2, probably won't be all of that time, but that's the
But for
reason.
water, okay.
School's
Did they
closed tomorrow
post it?
too.
We tried to do it on a day, so there was no school.
Yeah. Perfect. So,
Which reminds me-
all right. Okay. Great job by the PD and all the other agencies that came together to pull off
Can't see out those.
Halloween. Huge turnout. It's kind of turning into a destination. A lot of people coming in from other towns. I had a couple people telling me they had a hard time just finding a spot to park. But great job by everybody involved. I think the flow of traffic was managed well, and you know, everybody was pretty, I had nothing but positive feedback from the community on that. Big thank you to all the volunteers at voting the other day. I know Scott kind of already brought it up, but without those volunteers, we certainly wouldn't be able to pull that off. So, with I believe was a record turnout of over 2,200 people.
Well, that included absentee ballots. so
Did
it
oh,
would have been
well 20 well
1,800.
Still pretty
1,800.
impressive.
Say 1,800 in person.
yeah.
Yeah, and 280 absentee ballots.
You know, as we discussed earlier, we had some issues we need to work on. that were already, I think, on our radar beforehand, and we were just kind of out of our control at the time. But other than that, just so you guys know, I will be out of town from Saturday to Saturday. So if you need something, let me know.
I was gonna say, make sure I have the reapprovals on the manifest next week. Bob's usually one of them, so.
So,
One other thing is the scarecrow contest.
yes, yes.
Kudos to
Yeah.
the decorating committee and to Janice Snyder, because she put it out on Facebook and they had over 600 votes on Facebook.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's
I didn't even see
unheard
that.
of, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool. So, but I think that's all I have. Bob, thank you for your patience.
No problem.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just trying to keep that all.
I've learned to have patience over the years.
Yeah. So
I've been around quite a few of them.
I think we've kind of talked about what you want to talk about. I knew you were coming in, but go ahead.
Well, basically, the fact that both sides of the road were shut off up here. You couldn't, I don't have a handicap problem, okay?
Right.
My wife does. She has a walking problem, a very severe one, caused by 2 automobile accidents. But she can't get around well. I gotta be able to get her where you can't, you got 2 parking spaces up there, handicap spaces, you couldn't even get in there. And if I tried to pull in there with my truck, I'd have to run over half of the people in there if I could afford, and they don't come around so loud.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody did do that, by the way, that pulled up in there. We
Yeah.
watched it from down here. I was like, oh my God.
I pulled into the driveway, if that's what you were looking at.
No, it was someone
Okay.
else. The road wasn't shut down. It was
Because I
only-
pulled in and let her out.
There's no parking.
No, but he said that we shut down the road. We didn't.
Both sides, there were signs that said police, temporary police.
Shut down.
He's talking about the shoulders of Summer
On the sides
Street.
of Summer
Yes.
Street.
Both sides of the road.
Right. Yeah.
They weren't allowing you to park anywhere.
Yeah.
That wouldn't hold up traffic any more than this mess out here did.
I know. Yeah.
And that's, so you came just before, I think it was just
I was-
before I came down here.
No, you were
Yep.
down here because I
Was
was
it?
up there when
Okay,
he came.
yeah.
I was up there.
And it was kind of hard to predict. I mean, I knew it was gonna be busy.
So did I.
Yeah, we had far greater of a problem at the end of School Street
Yeah.
here, which is something we've already kind of,
But did the state shut the sides of the road down or what?
No, the police did because part of the problems are having people park. It became a safety issue, having people park out there. But they probably could have opened one side up.
Because I talked to the police chief,
Yeah.
and he said he talked to the select board about not putting those signs up there and the people being able to park there. That's what he told me.
so so obviously we're trying to resolve the issue. And one of the steps that we're gonna be taking is at our next meeting, we're gonna have a discussion. We hold what we call an election closeout meeting.
Yeah.
After the end of every election, saying, hey, what went right, what went wrong? And that's one of the things that one of the things we're gonna be doing is discussing with the police chief. So clearly, there's a miscommunication there, if that's what he's saying to you. So we will have that conversation with him at our next meeting, and, or maybe just Christina outside of that,
Because
but,
I know of 3 people that didn't even vote because they couldn't get in.
yeah, and that's not
They're all
okay.
handicapped, all 3 of them.
Yeah, and that's not okay.
No,
And
it isn't.
that's why we're pushing, or, that we went to the superintendent with that issue
Right.
and said, hey, can you help us resolve this issue? Because this, what happened the other day does not work.
No.
And unfortunately, we had our hands tied. The issue on the side there, I wasn't aware of that. I don't recall the history on that.
So the last prime election, they did close off it. It was too much, it was extremely difficult to have people crossing that street.
You couldn't see people coming out from between cars
Yeah,
either.
you could,
Yeah.
so that's why they were blocking driveways, people crossing higher up was causing more issues than to make.
I mean, I'll say from past experience, I know particularly at night, when there's parking there, it's not okay. So maybe the
Even
solution.
crossing down here was bad.
Right, and so, maybe the solution, and again, we gotta discuss it with the police chief, but, maybe we could allow some parking on the side of the road there during daylight hours, and then once it starts getting dark, we'll shut those spaces off.
And in the
We need to
past,
fix this overall.
Right, exactly.
For March.
It needs a better
For March, we
solution.
need to fix all of this.
I know you got mobbed, but it was a fiasco.
Yeah.
It was we weren't planning on being out there directing traffic at all. 8
I was
o'clock,
wondering why there was no PD out there.
8 o'clock in the morning when we got here, they were up the road this way, they were up Spruce Street, and this parking lot was completely full. I'm like,
Yeah.
Where
And,
you're
a lot of that
Oh, we
was,
got one coming out or two coming out, well, two in.
yeah.
a lot of that was calling some audibles and changing some things, and we did have it,
It got better when you came out. So,
we made some changes and got it flowing, and, but I would literally was telling, people would pull in and there'd be no parking here, I'd be like, take a lap.
Yep.
Keep traffic moving, we can't have cars backing out on the road there. So-
we'd be hollering across the parking lot, I'd be like, Rob, got one!
And that's, our world has changed in the last 40 years.
Oh, yeah.
40 years ago, you could park anywhere at the lake for fireworks night, everywhere, anywhere.
Sure,
Right.
yeah.
Right? And that's all because of safety and liability concerns, so.
Well, and 40 years ago, most households only had one car too.
That's very
So, yeah. Anything else, Bob?
Oh, that's it.
Thank you for coming in, and
We all agree.
we're on the same page,
Yeah.
so we just gotta figure out how to resolve the issue, so.
Something's gotta be
And we will do our best to do better in March.
There's more and more elderly. I happen to be one of the fortunate ones.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
But there ain't very many at 82 that can get around like I do.
No.
Oh, trust me, believe me, I've seen it in the past, but what we saw the other day was far worse.
Good.
Christina and I saw somebody, a gentleman get dropped off on the side of the road and then try to climb the bank, and we were both like.
And I know they tried to transport some up on one of the machines that they had here.
Yeah.
We had a vehicle too, but then.
The poor guy, they practically had to drag him into the machine because he couldn't get up over the running board. And then when he got up there, I thought he was gonna break his neck before I could get a hold of him, before he hit the ground, when he got out of it.
Well, that was brought in as a secondary, we had
Because had
town
people
car
waiting.
running too, but it just, it's
you-
not a good situation.
He says he's 82 and he can get around. I tell you, yesterday I could hardly walk. After being
Yes.
up there all
Oh,
day.
trust me, I know a lot of people younger than me.
Before you're done, I have one more.
Go ahead, Don.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you, Bob.
for coming. Yeah. Where are we with?
That's what I have to talk to you about, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks for, so,
Because it's getting towards the end of the year, if we don't have some kind of contract, we can't hold the money over.
correct,
And we'll lose it and have to vote again.
Oh, right.
correct.
Can it be encumbered?
Only if I have a contract.
We need a contract to cover.
So we have to
That's what I'm
definitely-
saying,
We
yeah.
have to go out for RFPs for demoing the building to hold the money. So I can give you the latest. We had a drawing drawn by the surveyor. He did not still agree with what we determined, we felt it was. So I submitted the drawing to the town's attorney, who suggested we had to do a title search. So we did the title search. I said I need it done quickly, so they did the title search. The title search came back. The attorney's written an opinion. I submitted it to the surveyor. I'm gonna reach back out to him tomorrow. And she told him what we need on the survey and told him what they were found between the title search, our research, his research, and the title search. We, as in the attorney, the title search, and this office agree that it's 2 to 3 lots. It's not one. So we're hoping that what she wrote convinces the surveyor. The other issue that has come up is that during the title search, there is a mortgage on the parsonage from 1958 that's never showed it was discharged. It's $7,700. And because it was issued to a bank, which is, it's New Hampshire Savings Bank, which is no longer a bank, normally mortgages that are private mortgages, if they're not bank mortgages, according to the attorney, after so long, if you, they become null and void, because they don't give you in perpetuity to claim them unless you lien a property. But, so because this is a bank, there's a statute that says it could still be viable.
Even
So-
if the entity doesn't exist anymore?
Well, from what I found out, I talked to the church, and from what I found out today, they believe, and I have to go look at my notes, I don't have them in front of me, they believe that Merrimack Bank is now merged with New Hampshire State Bank. And when they asked, the bank said they don't have any records beyond 10 years. So I went back, and they say they don't have a mortgage on the parsonage. And so I went back to the town's attorney, and what I can do now is I said, what happens if, we can't find anything, or we can't prove anything? She said that we can do a side agreement with the church in the town. Anyone ever tries to enforce the mortgage by foreclosure or collect on it, the church will bear all costs and will defend and indemnify the town. It isn't the ideal way to handle it, but it would be the best way to protect the town. So I can have it drawn up by her tomorrow, and then ask the church if they will sign it. They agreed to sign an agreement, I just don't know how wordy this agreement will be, and if that will make them nervous, so.
So we're not.
So if we get to the point where we're not gonna get this done in time, that money that was raised by taxation last year is in the general fund. So we would have to go back to town meeting and say, here's the situation, we have to vote on this again. The money's in the general fund, it's just gonna come from the general fund again.
Okay.
Well, at that point, what we could do is we could have the money have it come from unreserved balance.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Well, so we're going.
could do it that way if we.
right, that's
So it
our,
will require.
That's all.
So I will tell you that, so we have a contract, we can encumber the 20,000, we just can't encumber the funds to demo the building.
right.
So we could encumber the purchase and sale, we have a purchase and sale, so I can encumber that
Oh,
money
that's true.
to
yeah.
buy the
Yeah,
building.
with the P&S.
But we have to go back to the town to ask for the money back from the general fund if we can't do it.
What did we estimate demo at?
It's 87 something, so it was about 67,000 approximate. So
But you
the
can't-
warrant article is 87,
Can't
which
legally
included-
go to bid until we own the property.
Correct.
Does our
Or else we award
hesitation
contract.
require to go back to public hearing if we go back?
That's what I was just gonna ask.
But it
No.
does.
What's that?
No, because, well,
If
no,
we don't do this and we have to go back to town meeting, will we have to go through the public hearing
No.
process again?
no, because we have a
No, because
purchase.
that's just for this purchase. and
It's just for
sale.
the purchase.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
The money we have to go for.
If we go through with the purchase.
We just need the warrant in time.
Right, it will. We either need a contract in place, so if we can get this resolved
Yeah.
by this month, we could potentially have a contract in place. You would just have to meet before so couldn't guarantee you it would be by your second meeting in December, but you would have to do a quick meeting and just vote to encumber the funds if we have a contract in place by the end of the year.
Maybe the thing to do is to wait on the demo, actually, when we can go out, if we can get bids in before we put the warrant together, then we'll have at least a reasonable number. We have an actual number that we can go right.
Right, because we are just an estimate. I mean, the
Right.
only other thought would be
And it could be
you could
more.
technically.
I was gonna say, we might need more anyway.
No, that's right. I was just thinking, the only other thing you could potentially do, so we have a purchase and sale, so we can encumber the purchase of the property.
Right.
But you could potentially contract with KV Partners to be your contractor for the project. He's Mike McNally, KV Partners. So you could do that, I think. He would do the whole project then,
Okay.
demo it and
And
run
then
it,
he'd
but I
sub out.
don't know.
He'd
It's
sub
a thought. I just don't know if it would work, would be the right way to do it or not, so.
There again, we're not sure how much it's gonna
Right.
demo it, so maybe it is best just to encumber the purchase price.
All right,
So we'll get the agreement going, and that way I can get that done and, go from here.
Carol?
So about a week ago, it occurred to me, the VFW doesn't exist anymore, and Veterans Day is coming up.
Yes.
I mentioned it to Christina, and she was gonna put a call out to
I
Blake.
did, I reached out and they reached out to someone else, and I've gotten nothing
So
back
if
yet.
we aren't going to do anything, we should make sure we post that.
Well, I have to have it posted by tomorrow because it's Monday.
Right.
Yeah, that's actually
It's just gonna have to not be this year.
yeah. And I actually was gonna have a conversation with Chief Arash about Memorial Day and see if we can at least maybe figure out a way to bring something back with that.
The band director was very interested.
Yeah.
She told us Memorial Day to have the bands march and to
Yeah.
be part of it.
And that, I know the fire department's always been involved with that. And I know that's something that's particularly kind of near and dear to his heart, so I think he'd be a good one to talk to about kind of pulling something together as far as that's concerned.
Did they replace the flag? Fire department flag was frayed and took not,
The old one?
I
the
asked
one out
them,
in front of the building.
In
I
front of
asked
the
them
new
building?
to, I asked them to, but I'm not sure. I
Because
can
that should
follow
not be
up.
on Veterans Day if
No.
flag that's frayed like that.
So we're just gonna tell people we've got nothing this year. Just so people,
I-
because people are gonna be on Facebook, what's going on for Veterans Day?
Yeah.
I emailed again, let me just
Although
make sure there's no
in
response.
honesty, there's like 20 people who never go.
Right. Still.
It doesn't make it. Enough said, thank you.
Did we need to go back into non-public briefly to finish that discussion? or-
I have to do a 3-month evaluation coming up in the next month, and I'd like to start writing it early. Actually, it's probably less than a month.
What
A
evaluation?
3-month evaluation. Remember the 3, 6, 9, 12-month requirement on an offer?
Yes. Do we need to go back into non-public
For
briefly?
anything else? I can hold that until the 21st.
Well, I was
Oh.
talking about the discussion. Did we need to finish the discussion we were having earlier?
Does anyone remember what it was?
Well,
We're all like,
I guess I need, if you want to, I need to clarify whether you're having a meeting or not.
Let's just go into non-public for a minute.
Where's the agenda?
Make a motion to go into non-public.
That one's in the written agenda. That's where.
Oh,
Yes.
I don't have it. Because it is determined that divulgence of this information likely would, I don't have the RSA though.
RSA 91A.
91A.
1A, 3,
2, A, B, and C.
Thank you. It was a joint motion.
There we go.
Yeah.
We have a second?
Yeah.
Motion by Les, seconded by Scott to go into non-public session. Roll call vote, Scott?
Aye, Carol.
Carol, aye.
Aye.
Les, aye. Rob, aye.